Halo 2. Chapter 1. Master Chief stood at attention in his green armor as the medal was pinned to his chest. He had just been honored for his heroic actions in defeating the Covenant forces and destroying the Halo Ring. This was the first time he had returned to Earth since that fateful mission. The ceremony was taking place aboard the UNSC space station Cairo, in orbit above Earth. Master Chief gazed out the nearby window at the serene blue planet turning below. It was hard to believe that just weeks ago, he had been fighting for his life against hordes of alien invaders out in uncharted space. Now, safely back home, it almost felt unreal. "Congratulations, Master Chief," said Fleet Admiral Lord Hood, shaking his hand. "You've made all of humanity proud. With the Covenant forces scattered, we may finally have a chance at peace." As the Admiral went on with his speech, Cortana's voice suddenly chimed in Master Chief's helmet. "I'm detecting multiple slipspace ruptures near EO. It's a Covenant fleet." Alarms blared across the station. The crowd of dignitaries and naval officers stared around in confusion. Lord Hood demanded a status report from the technicians. "My God," one of them gasped. 15 Covenant capital ships incoming, and they've launched hundreds of boarding craft, ETA 3 minutes. "Battle stations," Hood barked. "Get these people evacuated from the ceremony hall now." Chaos erupted as the crowd ran for the exits. Master Chief was already moving, checking the ammo on his assault rifle. He exchanged a look with Cortana's hologram. This was just like old times. "Here we go again," she said dryly. Chief gave a grim nod and headed for the landing bay. It was time to show the Covenant they had picked the wrong planet to attack. Chapter 2. Explosions rocked the Cairo station as Covenant boarding craft blasted through its hull defenses. Alarms wailed while security teams scrambled to repel the invaders. Master Chief charged into the fray, immediately gunning down a squad of grunts before they could torch the evacuees. "Cortana, what's the situation planet-side?" he asked. "Massive Covenant landing all across Earth," she replied urgently. "New Mombasa is reporting heavy infantry engagement." Chief felt a flash of anger that these alien monsters had made it to humanity's homeworld. He would stop at nothing to drive them back. "Get me down there," he told Cortana. After fighting through several more squads, Chief made it to a HEV drop pod. He blasted away from the ravaged Cairo station and entered the atmosphere. Through the viewport he saw Earth, fires dotting the continents from Covenant bombardments. The pod shook violently as Chief plunged toward New Mombasa. Outside he saw Banshees strafing the city. An anti-air warthog spun out of control, trailing fire and smoke before crashing in downtown. Chief hit the ground hard, the pod leaving a crater in the pavement. He immediately rolled out, rifle firing. The Covenant had set up barricades and defenses through the city center. Hunter pairs stalked through the streets, while grunts scurried to and fro. Pinned down at Olympia Hotel, a Marine's voice crackled over comms. "Need immediate assistance." "On my way," Chief responded, racing through rubble-strewn alleys toward the flashing waypoint. He came upon a squad of Marines barricaded behind an overturned bus, with jackal snipers firing from windows all around. Chief let loose a frag grenade, then vaulted over the bus, spraying the jackals with assault rifle fire. Their energy shields flared until the aliens fell lifeless. "Sir, am I glad to see you," the sergeant said. "We've got civilians holed up in the hotel over there, Covenant are trying to flush them out. Not on my watch, Chief told him. Let's get these people to safety. Together they forced their way into the hotel lobby, taking down the alien forces inside. Chief knew the battle was far from over, but saving these people reminded him what he was fighting for. Chapter 3. Fel Vadami, Supreme Commander of the Covenant Fleet of Particular Justice, knelt before the high prophets of truth, regret, and mercy. His head was bowed in submission, though fury and shame boiled within him. He had failed in his duty to protect the sacred ring, a halo. Your inability to safeguard Halo was a colossal failure, the prophet of truth declared angrily, his wizened face wrinkling in disgust. The prophet of mercy spoke next. You were aboard that ship when the flood escaped quarantine. You witnessed the parasite overwhelm our holy relic. Finally, regret weighed in. And now the human who destroyed the ring, the demon they call Master Chief, has returned to Earth and revealed the portal location to us all. Your incompetence has undone centuries of search. Fel could not argue. He had no defense for allowing Halo's destruction. I accept full responsibility for my failure, he said solemnly. The Sanshaiwam could decree any punishment they wished. Death even would not atone for his shame. The prophets conferred privately for a moment. While nothing can redeem your staggering failure, Truth said at last, we offer you the chance for honor in death. Fel looked up, realization dawning. The mark of shame. You will become the Arbiter, Mercy declared. In this role, your failed life can still serve the Covenant, carry out our orders as the Arbiter, and you may one day walk the great journey. Regret motion, and the searing brand of the mark of shame appeared in the hands of a brute. Fel stared at it, a mix of dread and determination welling within him. He had no choice but to accept. I submit to the will of the prophets, he said. The brute plunged the brand onto Fel's chest. Pain lanced through him, but he refused to cry out. When it was over, the mark of shame glowed hotly on his flesh. He was now the Arbiter, sword and shield of the prophets. Rise, Arbiter, Truth said. Your redemption lies ahead. The newly branded Arbiter did so, ready to serve his penance. Chapter 4. Master Chief adjusted the Scorpion tank's grip controls and pressed forward through the jungle. He was pushing toward the coordinates where Cortana had detected Covenant activity. So far, the area seemed quiet, with no alien activity in sight. According to intel, the Covenant had established some kind of excavation site out here. And if the Covenant were interested in something here on Earth, Chief knew it had to be important. I'm not reading any signs of activity ahead, Cortana reported over the comm. But stay alert, there could be cloaked units. Copy that, Chief replied, swiveling the Scorpion's main cannon slowly about as he scanned the tree line. The massive treads crushed down brush and small trees, carving a path through the rainforest. In the distance, Chief spotted the alien spires and purple alloy structures that indicated a Covenant dig site. I have visual on the Covenant outpost, he radioed. Proceed with caution, Chief, came Cortana's reply. There's no telling what they uncovered here. Chief parked the Scorpion out of sight and proceeded on foot, using the dense jungle foliage as cover. He slipped silently between the alien structures until he reached the main excavation pit. Peering down, Chief felt his eyes go wide. Cortana, you seeing this? Sweet mother of, she exclaimed. Is that what I think it is? Jutting from the earth was the prow of an absolutely enormous alien vessel. It had to be over 5 kilometers long, dwarfing anything Chief had ever seen built by human hands. The architecture was unmistakably Forerunner. A dormant Forerunner ship, Cortana mused in awe. This could be even more pivotal than Hello if the Covenant managed to get it working. Chief's mind raced. They could not let the Covenant access whatever secrets this vessel held. He primed a grenade to toss into the pit, intent on collapsing the excavation in. But before he could act, a plasma shot sizzled past his head. Chief whirled to see a squad of elites inbound, with grunts and jackals in tow. Let's discuss this later, Cortana suggested. Chief fell back, firing controlled bursts from his battle rifle. The Covenant had the advantage of numbers, though, and were driving him back toward the pit. Then the entire site began to tremble. A thrum of energy built in the air. The Forerunner ship in the pit started to glow and come alive. A bright beam lanced out, enveloping Master Chief. Cortana, he shouted. Hang on, she replied. Everything flashed white. Then the jungle, Covenant, and excavation site all vanished. Chapter 5. Master Chief materialized aboard the massive Forerunner ship. He quickly swept his assault rifle about, prepared for attack. But there was no sign of the Covenant boarding party that had been pursuing him. The ship's teleport system had snatched only him. Interesting, Cortana mused over the comms. It seems the ship's automated systems have identified you as Reclaimer. It must be scanning your genetic code as compatible with the Forerunners. Lucky me, Chief muttered. He proceeded cautiously through the dark corridor, the glow from his helmet the only light. Any idea where we are? The ship appears to be in some kind of standby mode, Cortana replied. Main power is still offline, but the teleport grid is active, so some systems are awake. As if to confirm Cortana's analysis, sections of the wall illuminated as Chief passed by. Holographic panels and consoles activated, seemingly responding to his presence. Well, at least we don't have to worry about the Covenant getting their hands on this thing now, Chief said. Ahead, the corridor opened into a vast central chamber. Master Chief moved out onto a platform that began descending like an elevator toward the chamber floor far below. Through the dim lighting, he could make out massive shapes and forms around them, like the hulking tomb of some ancient alien civilization. Halfway down, the entire ship suddenly shuddered. Chief seized the railing to keep his balance. Was that a slip-space jump, Cortana said. The ship just activated and entered slip-space on its own. Chief felt his gut lurch, both from the jump and the implications. They were now light years from Earth, transported via the Forerunner ship's mysterious purpose. Wherever it was taking them, they were along for the ride. See if you can access the ship's navigation systems, Chief told Cortana. Find out where we're headed. Already on it, Chief. He continued descending toward the cavernous chamber floor. Without warning, spotlights snapped on to illuminate a central platform ahead. Standing atop the platform was a holographic figure, a female in form, skin tone a pale blue, clad in angular Forerunner armor. Reclaimer, the AI construct spoke in an echoing voice. I am 2246 Sublime Transcendence. I serve as custodian of this vessel. Cortana, Chief asked quietly for any insights. She appears to be a Forerunner and Scylla, Cortana whispered back over the comms. Could be helpful to access the ship's functions. Chief stepped forward to address the AI. Why have you brought us here? Where are we headed? The Ancilla floated toward him. A gathering of the inheritors and those who hold the mantle is long overdue. We proceed to the assembly at Tyran. Humanity's homeworld. This ship was returning to Earth. For what purpose Chief did not know, but he had to find a way to stop it from falling into Covenant hands. Chief, Cortana suddenly warned. The ship will be exiting slit space in 1 minute. There was no time to come up with a plan. As the massive vessel dropped back into normal space, all Chief could do was brace himself and hope to regain control of this rapidly deteriorating situation. Chapter 6. The Forerunner dreadnought fell out of slipspace alarmingly close to Earth. Through the front view screens, Chief could see they had exited right at the edge of the Sol system, with Earth visible across the vast gulf of space. Why have we stopped short of Earth? He asked the Ancilla Sublime Transcendence. The AI seemed to study him curiously. Your physical form indicates you are of Reclaimer origin, yet your questions reveal unfamiliarity with our journey's purpose. She doesn't realize humanity lost connection with the Forerunners thousands of years ago, Cortana informed Chief privately over his suit comms. That gave Chief an idea. Earth has changed since the Forerunners last visited, he told the Ancilla. Before proceeding, I should Goplinet side as an envoy to prepare the inheritors for this ship's arrival. Sublime Transcendence considered this, then replied, Very well, Reclaimer. We shall hold orbit here while you undertake this task. Chief let out a small breath of relief. At least now he could get to Earth and try to find a way to keep this Forerunner ship out of Covenant hands. Please transport me to the surface, he said. The AI acquiesced, returning Chief to the central platform, which now glowed with teleportation energy. We await your signal to commence our mission, Reclaimer. Travel safely. Moments later, Chief found himself deposited back in the African jungle near the excavation site. He immediately activated his comms. UNSC Bravo 01 to Cairo. This is Spartan 117. Does anyone read? Static answered him. Looks like we're out of range of normal comms, Cortana assessed. The ship put us down several thousand kilometers from Earth orbit. We're stranded here. Chief's I2D already showed the Forerunner ship far in the sky overhead, holding geostationary orbit above their position. There had to be some way to contact UNSC forces and apprise them of the situation. That's when Cortana chimed in excitedly. Wait, I'm detecting a constellation of communications satellites in low orbit ahead of us. They must have been deployed after the Covenant invaded Earth. If we can reach them, I should be able to network in and send a priority communique. Nav point marked, Chief confirmed, spotting the objective blip on his helmet display. Let's get moving. It was a lengthy trek, avoiding Covenant patrols and pushing through harsh jungle terrain to reach the satellite constellation anchored above the coastline. But finally Chief arrived at the designated coordinates. Cortana, see what you can do, he said, plugging the AI directly into the satellite's control systems. After several moments she returned. Message away, now to hope someone on the UNSC side is listening. Chief reloaded his weapons and took up an overwatch position. If they were lucky, a allied ship or ODSTs might be dispatched to retrieve them. If not, they would have to find another way off-world to stop the Forerunner ship from reaching Earth. But as hour bled into hour with no response, Chief felt his hope of rescue dwindling. He and Cortana might well be stranded out here alone behind enemy lines, without any way to warn Earth of the grave danger approaching in orbit overhead. Chapter 7. Aboard the Covenant Holy City High Charity, the High Prophet of Truth gazed out his throne room windows at the Forerunner dreadnought newly arrived from Earth. The ancient vessel hung silently over the city, casting an ominous shadow through the methane mists. "Is it true?" spoke a gravelly voice behind him. Truth turned to face the hulking brute, Chieftain Tartarus, who had just entered. "The humans have unearthed a Forerunner relic?" Tartarus asked. Truth nodded. "One far greater and more potent than even the sacred rings." He motioned for Tartarus to walk with him. "His ship holds the means to reach the absolute record, the map and key to the Ark." Tartarus growled in surprise and anticipation. "Then we must not delay in seizing control of the vessel. At last we can begin the great journey." "Patience," Truth admonished. "The human demon still dwells aboard the ship. We have deployed the Arbiter to silence him." They arrived at a sealed room guarded by 2 brute honor guards. Tartarus regarded the door with reverence. "Is that wise, prophet, to give such a crucial task to one bearing the mark of shame?" "His failure at Halo merited punishment," Truth acknowledged. "But the Arbiter remains a formidable warrior. He will succeed in this mission, or die trying." The guards opened the door. Truth and Tartarus entered the cold vault within. Suspended in levitation pods were 2 tiny creatures, withered and ancient, but pulsing with power. These were 2 of the handful of Forerunner and Scyllas seized by Covenant during their long ascendancy. The Oracle guides from the sacred rings. Their knowledge would be pivotal to seizing control of the newly unearthed ship. Chapter 8. The Arbiter stepped onto the gilded grav lift platform, his armor glinting in High Charity's artificial light. Around him, the Covenant Holy City bustled with activity. Phantoms bearing reinforcements departed continuously for the invasion of Earth. Soon he would join that battle on the human homeworld. But first, a stop at the gas giant threshold to silence a particularly troublesome heretic. "Take care, Arbiter," the Prophet of Truth said as he arrived to see the Arbiter off. "The storm-racked exterior of Threshold hides many perils, but none as great as the parasite these heretics would unleash if left unchecked." Vadimi bowed his head. "By the Prophet's will, I shall cleanse their infestation from Threshold." "Proceed then to your ships," Truth instructed. "Make swift the sword of the Covenant, so that we may continue on the path." The grav lift activated, ferrying the Arbiter up toward the orbital platforms, where a small fleet awaited him. He would hunt down these heretics in whatever hole they hid, and regain 1 step of honor lost when he had failed to protect the sacred ring from human hands. The Arbiter's phantom hunched through Threshold's swirling atmosphere. Lightning arced wildly through the clouds, buffeting the dropship with turbulence. Somewhere down there, amid the raging storms, the heretic's base hid. His ship approached coordinates over a churning methane sea. "There," the pilot announced. "I've found the heretic landing zone." The Arbiter readied his energy sword. "Set us down. The storm will mask our approach." They descended through the winds toward a large gas mining rig attached to helium balloons. The Phantom landed on one of the rig's platforms. The Arbiter strode forth, his squad of elites behind him. It did not take long to find the first heretics, a pair of jackals armed with needlers. The Arbiter cut them down with ease and pushed inside the rig. Hallways and machinery stretched out before him, an ominous metal maze. Wretched heretics, he cursed under his breath. Somewhere deep in this structure, the leader who had swayed these covenant from the prophet's divine path lurked. The Arbiter would see his false sermons ended. They navigated deeper through the mining complex, encountering increasingly fierce resistance. The Arbiter realized these heretics must truly believe in their cause, misguided though it was to oppose even a holy warrior such as himself. Finally, they reached the central chamber. The leader stood waiting, unarmed but unafraid. "So," he said sadly, "the prophets have sent their lackey to silence me." The Arbiter ignited his energy sword. "Your heresies end here." But rather than resist, the heretic leader simply shook his head. "You are blinded, Arbiter, as I once was, until my eyes opened to the truth this oracle revealed." The Arbiter faltered. "An oracle, a sacred Forerunner and Scylla. Could divinity truly have led these heretics astray? Or did they know something he did not?" For the first time, doubt took root in his mind. But he had his orders. With one swift stroke, he cut down the heretic leader. The remaining heretics retreated from the complex leaderless. Yet questions now simmered within the Arbiter. What had the oracle shown these heretics to turn them from their faith? And could he still trust so absolutely in the prophet's divine guidance? Chapter 9. The aftermath of the Battle of Threshold had been costly. Dozens of Covenant ships broken and burned in atmosphere now littered the gas giant's stormy face. Aboard the cruiser Seeker of Truth, the Arbiter stood solemnly looking out the viewport at the floating debris. By all accounts, his mission here had succeeded. The heretic forces had been routed, and their leader eliminated. Yet the true cost continued to nag at the edges of his mind. So many lives lost, and for what? To silence dissent? The prophets proclaimed these heretics dangerous, but what actual threat had they posed to the Covenant? The Arbiter could not escape these doubts that now clouded his thoughts. The oracle that had turned these heretics from their faith, he had to know what it showed them. What revelation could shake the very foundation of belief? "Arbiter, we are being contacted by the Holy City High Charity," a helmsman announced. "The hierarchs request your presence." Wordlessly, the Arbiter turned and headed for the transmission chamber. A larger holo pedestal awaited him there, used for direct communication across interstellar distances. He stepped onto the pedestal and sank to one knee. The towering forms of the prophet's truth, mercy, and regret appeared before him. "Arbiter, your success in quelling the heretics is most pleasing," Truth spoke in his aged, rasping voice. "You continue to walk the path. By the prophet's will, I serve the Covenant," the Arbiter recited by rote, but the words felt hollow. Mercy leaned forward. "A new task awaits you now. The demon known as Master Chief has been located on the human homeworld. You must hunt him down and silence him." Regret motioned his bony hand. "To aid you, we send you one who ferried the heretics to their doom, the blessed oracle itself, for it knows how best to defeat these impurities." The Arbiter's eyes widened behind his helmet. Here was the chance he had been seeking, to gaze upon the oracle with his own eyes. "Your blessings humble me," he said, bowing in obedience. Go now, chosen Arbiter, Truth proclaimed. Seek out the demon and end the human threat forever. Their forms winked out. The Arbiter rose, conflicted thoughts warring in his mind. He would proceed as instructed to Earth. But once this oracle was in his grasp, he would find the answers he sought. For he could no longer accept solely on faith that the prophet's cause was just. Not until he knew for himself what holy wisdom had so shaken the heretic's belief. The time had come to peer behind the veil. Chapter 10. John 117 peered through his sniper scope across the rim of the crater, observing as banshees buzzed by on patrol overhead. The Covenant continued to maintain a tight grip on this area, even days after unearthing the Forerunner ship, which meant Chief and Cortana were still cut off from Allied forces, without any means of warning Earth about the grave danger posed by that dreadnought lingering in high orbit. "We're running out of time," Cortana said over the comms. "At this rate, the Covenant are sure to find some way to seize control of the ship." "Agreed," Chief replied. "Have you picked up any transmissions we could use to reach the UNSC?" "I've got something faint, but regular," Cortana answered hopefully. "Encrypted military channel coming from roughly 50 clicks north. It could be a survivor group operating behind enemy lines." "Worth investigating," Chief decided, sliding down into the crater and out of sight of the patrolling banshees. He set off north, sticking to deep jungle wherever possible to avoid Covenant ground forces. The going was slow, and Chief frequently had to detour and backtrack. But finally his motion tracker started picking up signals ahead. Pushing through thick ferns, Chief spotted them, a ragged-looking group of human Marines dug in around the remnants of a smashed Pelican. One of them noticed Chief's approach and shouted a challenge. "Identify yourself." "Sierra 117, UNSC, Chief answered. "Are you the ones broadcasting on encryption Alpha Bravo?" The Marine squad lowered their weapons, relief evident even through their helmets. "Thank God, a Spartan," the sergeant said. "We've been stuck out here getting our asses kicked since that ship showed up." He gestured skyward. Chief approached and clasped arms with the sergeant. "Believe me, I understand. Is your equipment still operational?" The Marine shook his head ruefully. "Most everything got trashed in the crash. Your AI have any better luck reaching the fleet than we have?" "Unfortunately not," Cortana replied over Chief's external speakers. "But if I can plug into your comm system and triangulate with the ship's broadcast, I may be able to." A banshee's scream overhead cut her off. A wing of the aircraft were swooping down toward the crashed Pelican. Their cover was blown. Chief was already grabbing a rocket launcher from the Marines. "Get to cover," he barked. "Return fire on my mark." He sighted on the lead Banshee as it began its strafing run. The pilot clearly hadn't expected such heavy resistance. Chief squeezed the trigger, the rocket streaking forth and blowing the Banshee's right wing off in a ball of fire. The rocket's contrail gave away the survivor's position, though. More Banshees swung inbound, accompanied by Phantoms full of troop reinforcements. It was going to be a tough fight getting out of this one. But failure was not an option. Too much depended on Chief escaping to carry word of the Forerunner ship back to UNSC forces. So he roared a battle cry as the Covenant bore down on them, determined to fight his way through and survive. Chapter 11. Lord Hood gazed grimly at the holographic tactical display aboard the Earth defense platform Cairo. Covenant forces were pressing their advance on all fronts. If they couldn't halt the aliens here, Earth itself would be at risk. Status of the orbital gun platforms, he demanded. Only Cairo and Malta are still operational, one of the technicians replied. But they're keeping the Covenant fleet at bay for now. Hood nodded. Those massive guns were Earth's last line of defense against the encroaching alien armada. If the Covenant managed to slip through and deploy reinforcements planet-side, the outcome would be catastrophic. Sir, new slipspace rupture forming to the east, a lookout suddenly shouted. Reading friendly transponder, it's the UNSC frigate in amber-clad emerging. Admiral, the in amber-clad's Captain Keyes spoke over the comms. Sorry for the delay, but I was waylaid gathering critical intelligence you'll want to hear. Hood felt the first glimmer of hope he'd had since the attack began. Captain, it's damn good to hear your voice. What have you got for me? Only the key to stopping these alien bastards cold, Keyes replied. Connect me with your AI for data transfer. Moments later, Cairo's AI appeared next to Hood. Data received and processed, Admiral. It appears Captain Keyes recovered vital information regarding a Forerunner warship unearthed by Covenant on Earth. Hood studied the specifications with growing awe. A fully intact Forerunner dreadnought with a slipspace drive capable of accessing unprecedented locations. Whoever controlled this ship would have an almost unimaginable strategic advantage. If we could capture this ship instead of the Covenant, he murmured. Keyes' voice echoed his thoughts. Exactly what I was thinking, sir. That's why I volunteered the in amber-clad for a stealth op to try boarding her. It was a bold, daring plan. Perhaps their only hope of turning the tide. Make it happen, Captain, Hood ordered. I'll assemble all available ships here to strike the Covenant fleet while you move in. Understood, sir. Keyes out. Hood began issuing orders to mass their remaining ships for a desperate do-or-die assault. The orbital guns would try to carve an opening so an amber-clad could break through and reach the Forerunner vessel. If they failed, Earth was doomed. But if by some miracle they succeeded in seizing the alien ship from under the Covenant's nose, humanity might finally gain the advantage it needed to survive this war. All ships report ready, Admiral, the Cairo's captain announced. And I have an amber-clad prepped to run the gauntlet on your word. Hood straightened to his full height. Then let the battle be joined, for Earth and the UNSC fire. The deck plating rumbled as Cairo's massive gun opened up, joining Malta in unleashing hell on the Covenant fleet. All around them, UNSC vessels surged forward, aiming directly for the enemy's heart. In the midst of the maelstrom, an amber-clad appeared, speeding toward the prize which could save humanity or seal its fate. Chapter 12. The UNSC frigate in amber-clad blasted through the raging battle that filled Earth's orbit. All around, human and Covenant warships exchanged apocalyptic broadsides in the fight for humanity's homeworld. Evasive maneuvers, Captain Keyes ordered as a Covenant destroyer broke apart under the pounding of Cairo's orbital guns. Its remains tumbled past their bow, scant kilometers away. The in amber-clad juked between the burning debris, maintaining course for the Forerunner dreadnought looming ahead. They had one chance to pull this off. Warning sirens blared as a wing of Seraph fighters fell in behind them, plasma cannons blazing. The frigate shuddered under the barrage. Damage on our aft shields. Cortana warned from the bridge holotank. It can't take much more punishment. He's gripped his command chair. Divert all power to the engines. We need to reach that ship. The deck beneath his feet hummed as the reactors redlined. An amber-clad streaked past a pair of exchanging Covenant and UNSC frigates, moving too fast now for the Seraphs to draw a bead. The Forerunner vessel filled the view screen as they closed in. Captain looked. Cortana enlarged the display, highlighting glowing energy pulses emanating from docking arms on the alien ship's underbelly. We have teleportation systems active. This is our way in. He's wasted no time. Take us straight in maximum thrust. We're going for those gravity beams. The frigate accelerated even as sections started to melt from the heat of re-entry. They plummeted toward the energy web being projected from the Forerunner ship. Brace for impact, Keyes yelled. The converging forces combined explosively as an amber-clad pierced the teleport beam. For a split second, the ship shook as if being torn apart. Then they flashed out of existence and reappeared inside one of the Forerunner vessel's massive launch bays. Report, Keyes barked, regaining his feet after having been knocked from his chair. We made it, sir, Cortana confirmed with clear relief. The teleport beam transported us successfully inside the Forerunner ship. Keyes allowed himself a tight smile. By some miracle, it had actually worked. They now had a foothold aboard what could be humanity's greatest discovery. Prep first recon squad for immediate deployment, he ordered. Let's claim this ship for the UNSC. But no sooner had the squad launched than alarms blared anew. Slip space rupture off the port bow, Cortana warned. Keyes turned to see a Covenant assault carrier emerge almost on top of them. Before he could react, the alien ship attacked, slicing through an amber-clad's hull with a blistering salvo. Keyes was hurled backward, fires erupting across the bridge. This mission was unraveling fast. If he didn't think quickly, they would lose this priceless ship and all the hope it represented. Cortana, fracture the computer core, he shouted, staggering through smoke and debris. Initiate Cole Protocol Article 1. They couldn't let the Covenant gain access to navigation data leading back to Earth. As Cortana wiped the systems, Keyes made his way to the lifeboats. They had failed to seize this ship. Now their only hope was escape, and bringing word back of what they had discovered here. With the core fractured and data wiped, Keyes launched away from the stricken in amber-clad. The lifeboat streaked out of the hangar, just as another barrage from the Covenant assault carrier finished off the embattled frigate. Keyes slammed the thrusters to full, mind racing with all he had to report. The Forerunner ship, though lost for now, could still save humanity. Chapter 13. The UNSC fleet was in disarray. Their unified push had fallen apart in the face of the relentless Covenant onslaught. What ships remained were now scattered across Earth's orbit, with some attempting to flee outside the kill zone. On board the defense platform Cairo, Admiral Lord Hood stared grimly at the tactical display. Things had gone from bad to worse once the Covenant's holy city, High Charity, arrived via slipspace transit and began hammering them with heavy plasma batteries. An Emberclad was now confirmed destroyed. And with it, any hope of seizing the Forerunner dreadnought from Covenant control. That ship still hovered silently above them, an ominous shadow over these failing war efforts. Damage report. Hood barked, bracing himself as another salvo rocked Cairo's frame. We've lost primary power on decks 15 through 20, the AI replied. Long-range communications are down. and Malta Station just went dark. Hood lowered his head. Earth's last orbital guns, their only chance at keeping the Covenant fleet back, were both now out of commission. It was only a matter of time before the aliens pressed their advantage. "Bring us around to heading 172, he ordered quietly, "and prep all lifeboats for immediate evacuation." Retreat was the only option left to save what personnel and equipment they could. As Cairo maneuvered into position, an ominous shadow fell over the bridge. Hood looked up to see High Charity drifting right above them, easily dwarfing the defense platform. But strangely, the Covenant made no move to finish them off. In fact, the Holy City appeared to be turning now, reorienting itself as power builds crackled across its surface. "Admiral," cried the AI, "High Charity is powering up some kind of large-scale teleport matrix aimed directly at the Forerunner ship." Indeed, brilliant arcs of energy could now be seen bridging the space between High Charity and the alien dreadnought. Hood watched in dismay as the Covenant prepared to board and seize the relic for themselves. But something was wrong. The energy transfer began fluctuating dangerously. Static discharges rippled along High Charity's hull as the ancient Forerunner systems resisted the intrusion. Then, with a thunderous boom that reverberated across the battlefield, the connection ruptured. Blinding energy cascaded over High Charity's towers before a massive slip-space rupture tore violently through its midsection. When it was over, High Charity had been ripped in two pieces, its teleport beam flickering out. The wreckage drifted apart, now lifeless and still. Hood could only stare in disbelief. With its leadership and military core gutted, the Covenant attack began to waver and lose coordination. Seizing this chance, he immediately issued orders for UNSC ships to pull back and regroup. By some twist of fate, utter disaster had been narrowly averted. The Forerunner vessel still hung silent and untouched above Earth, and while humanity was battered, they retained some frail hope of fighting on. This battle may have been lost, but perhaps yet the war could be won. Chapter 14. The Arbiter stepped onto the gilded grav lift platform, bound for his next mission. The Oracle construct floated nearby, encapsulated safely for transport. Though victory on Earth still eluded them, the Covenant now controlled the holy Forerunner dreadnought unearthed there. The hierarchs thus commanded the Arbiter to take the Oracle to the Delta Halo ring. There he would hunt down the human known as Master Chief, who had already destroyed one of the sacred rings. As the platform began its ascent, a familiar voice called out, "Stop, Arbiter." He turned to see his former comrade Artas, Vadim, striding forth. The injury that had cost Vadim his left mandibles had been replaced with prosthetic metal. "The Council does not fully trust you," Artas declared. The Arbiter nodded. Given his mark of shame, that much was evident. "Yet they allow me to continue serving." "They implore you to recognize the honor," Artas insisted. Behind him, Spec Ops elites took up flanking positions. A precaution or an armed escort? The Arbiter could not be certain. Looking Artas in the eye, he gave a slight bow. "Once you called me brother. All I ask is that you continue to do so." Artas placed a hand on his shoulder. "You are no less my brother now than the day we first met in battle. Fight with honor, Arbiter." They clasped wrists, reconciling their bond, before the grav beams swept the Arbiter up to the waiting cruiser. He would proceed to Delta Halo and silence the human demon Master Chief. By his hand, the great journey would finally advance. Days later, the Arbiter stood in a chaos of combat upon the surface of Delta Halo. Covenant forces engaged swarms of flood parasites across the ancient Forerunner structures, seeking to contain the outbreak unleashed by the humans. This ring, like the first, had become overrun by the parasite. Containment now seemed impossible, despite the raging battle waged by his warrior brothers. The flood continued to advance, absorbing all biomass in their path. In the distance, the Arbiter glimpsed a lance of green light rise up from the horizon. Recognizing the human weapon, he opened an urgent comm channel. "Chieftain, the demon has triggered Delta Halo's activation index," he warned Tartarus, who had joined this mission aboard the Forerunner ship. "The ring will fire." "Then we must act quickly to remove the sacred icon from the control room," Tartarus rasped in reply. "Meet us within this dreadnought. We shall use its teleportation grid to reach the library ahead of the vermin." The Arbiter complied, falling back as flood forms closed in around him. Once safely aboard the Forerunner vessel, he joined the chieftain in stepping onto the glowing teleport pads. In a flash, they rematerialized within the library's soaring halls. The index hovered ahead, a holographic representation of the activation key. Tartarus wasted no time in claiming it. "Now to the control room, where we shall pluck the human weed," he declared. They ascended rapidly through grav lifts toward Delta Halo's apex. But when the control room doors slid open, it was not the demon who awaited them. Instead, a monstrous creature sat interfaced with the holographic controls, one of the dreaded gravemind, the Flood's central intelligence. "Do not shoot, but listen," the creature bellowed in an echoing voice. "Let us stop the keys turning." The Arbiter stared in shock. Was the enemy of his enemy now demanding alliance? Before he could respond, Tartarus strode forward and used the Fist of Rock to lift the gravemind into the air. "Let us finish our crusade," the chieftain rasped, casting the writhing creature out into the abyss. He then forced the index into the core override. "Now the great journey can begin." But the Arbiter looked upon the ring firing sequence with a growing dread. Was annihilating all sentient life truly the divine journey promised by the prophets? Or had they tragically misread these relics' purpose? There was no more time for doubt. He had to stop Tartarus from activating the ring and doom them all. Chapter 15. John 117 clambered over the edge of the massive chasm, pulling himself back onto solid ground. Down in the depths, he had seen evidence of the flood overrunning this installation, just as they had the first Halo ring. Which meant it was imperative he find the index and activate this Halo before things escalated further. "Any luck tracking the index?" he asked Cortana. "Negative, but I detected a spike of activity in the library," she replied. "Could be the Covenant trying to acquire it ahead of us." Chief immediately began moving toward the library, rifle ready. This mission had been tough going from the start, and was only getting more complicated by the minute. At least Cortana was still with him this time. Up ahead, he spotted a lone elite stalking through the mist, the likely wounded and separated from its pack. Easy pickings. Chief took aim, preparing to squeeze the trigger. "Wait, Chief." Cortana suddenly spoke up. "That's the Arbiter, the one we faced on Alpha Halo. Something's different about him." Chief hesitated, studying the alien warrior more closely. Its armor was battered and splashed with blood. But it was the way the Arbiter carried himself that gave Chief pause, a sort of weary resignation. "It appears he's been marked with the brand of the Arbiter," Cortana noted. "They only bestow that title as an act of punishment. So he's a disgraced soldier trying to redeem himself," Chief concluded, still wary but now more curious. Keeping his rifle ready, he stepped into the open. "Turning on your own commander's Arbiter?" The elite whipped around, igniting a plasma sword, then just as quickly lowered it once recognizing the Spartan. "We have strayed from the path, demon. I now seek the truth that lies beyond its end." Cryptic words, but they hinted at common ground. Neither of them fully trusted their own leaders anymore. Chief made a decision, sliding his rifle onto his back. "I'm going to the control room. Come with me if you want real answers." The Arbiter fell in step beside him. They advanced toward the library, dispatching a wave of combat forms that barred entry. Chief still wasn't fully lowering his guard, but fighting alongside this former enemy felt different now. Necessary. Inside the library, it looked like a hurricane had torn through. Debris and corpse parts littered the floor, evidence of the struggle here. An entire Covenant squad lay dead, no match for a rampaging grave mine. Chief hoped they could reach the index before the flood did. But when they entered the control room, a horrifying sight awaited them. High Chieftain Tartarus held the index, attempting to activate the ring. "No, you fool," the Arbiter cried in dismay. "This will destroy us all." The brute leader simply laughed. "Your heresy ends here. The great journey is nigh." Chief raised his rifle and opened fire on Tartarus, but an energy shield protected him. They didn't have long before he fired the ring. Everything, humanity, Covenant, all life, hung now on whether ancient enemies could unite against extinction. Chapter 16. Smoke and flames raged through High Charity's ravaged halls. The entire midsection of the Holy City had been ripped open by explosive force, leaving it adrift in pieces. Now the parasite called Flood poured uncontained through the wound. On the bridge of the intact command spire, a hologram of the Prophet of Truth wavered as systems failed. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Report on our situation." A tech assistant replied in panic over the channel. "Noble Prophet, the entire center mass has been destroyed. Flood are spreading rapidly toward the spire." Truth reeled in shock. Had their journey's end come so suddenly? "Seal off all entrances to the spire," he rasped. "We cannot let the infestation in." But even as blast doors slammed down throughout the structure, the parasite found its way through conduits and crevices. Combat forms dropped onto the bridge to wreak havoc, overwhelmed only by Truth's personal honor guard. The Prophet of Mercy appeared beside Truth, clutching his ornamental headdress in desperation. "The parasite knows no bounds. Now that it has this city, all will be consumed." "No," Truth insisted angrily. "Our faith's promise shall not be denied." But inside, doubt took root. How could divine beings let their holy city fall so easily to this scourge? For several days they watched helplessly as High Charity was hollowed out from within. Bulkheads fell, systems failed, and endless legions of Flood fed. Soon the holograms of their brothers leading forces on Delta Halo went ominously silent. In the end, only Truth's spire remained intact. The bridge crawled with infection forms skittering through cracks. Mercy sat slumped against a wall, reduced to mumbling prayers. "All is lost." Mercy lamented, overwhelmed by sorrow. The great journey. Truth turned his back so the other prophet would not witness his crumbling faith. Had they been wrong to put such hope in the relics? Were their kind never meant to walk divine halls? A shrill beep drew his attention. A slip-space rupture was forming near High Charity's ruins, an escape vessel. "There, see," he exclaimed. "Not all is forsaken. The Forerunners provide deliverance." Helping Mercy to his feet, Truth hurried them both onto a gravity lift. But as High Charity and a raging parasite fell away behind them, Truth felt hollow inside. Once so certain, now he wondered if true believers or damned fools had placed all their hopes in a journey that would never come. John 117 watched as the Arbiter fell to his knees, head bowed. Together, they had finally halted Delta Halo's firing and defeated the chieftain Tartarus. But the Arbiter seemed shaken to his core. "All our lessons in faith undermined," he murmured. Chief looked on silently. Seeing even his staunchest enemy so lost reminded him how devastating it was when fundamental truths crumbled. "For eons we believed the Forerunners awaited us," the Arbiter continued solemnly. "But this construct and oracle prove that false." He indicated 2401 Penitent Tangent, the monitor they had freed, and the oracle that had turned the heretics. Both AIs hovered nearby, illuminating the harsh reality. "No one was meant to fire the rings," the monitor explained. "This halo and others like it can purge all sentient life. They are weapons of last resort." Chief felt that ominous confirmation sink in. The Covenant had been awaiting transcendence, but they would have found only annihilation. "So we marched to Oblivion's gate, never questioning," the Arbiter said bitterly. Chief placed a hand on the elite's shoulder. "Maybe now your kind can build new truths." Their comms suddenly crackled to life as Shipmaster Artas Vadim hailed them from high orbit. "Arbiter, the parasite has overwhelmed High Charity and is spreading rapidly. We must act quickly." The Arbiter exchanged a grave look with Chief. "If the Covenant's holy city has fallen, the infestation will consume your galaxy next." Chief steeled himself for the brutal fight ahead. "Then let's make sure it ends here." Together they strode toward the awaiting Phantom, immortal enemies now united by fate against a greater threat. When long-buried truths came to light, sometimes faith in each other was all that remained. Chapter 17. Aboard the Forerunner dreadnought, Tartarus lay dead, ending his bid to activate the Halo array. But although the firing sequence had been halted, the threat was far from over. "The parasite has taken High Charity," Commander Keyes reported as he arrived at the ship's control room. "By now, the fleet guarding Delta Halo is completely overrun." Sergeant Johnson shook his head bitterly. "It's those damn elites had us all fooled." Keyes understood Johnson's anger toward the Arbiter, having lost many good Marines to the Covenant. But right now, survival took priority over grudges. "We simply do not have manpower to contain this outbreak. We need to evacuate while we still can." Suddenly, Miranda Keyes' voice rang out over the calm. "Dad, Cortana is contacting me." She and Chief made it back to the surface. They know Halo's already infected. Keyes allowed himself a small smile, thankful she was safe. "Get them on comms. We need their intel." Moments later, Cortana's voice came through. "Captain Keyes, this is even worse than I feared. The Flood have taken this ring completely. High Charity jumped here infected, and now the parasite is in full-blown interstellar extinction mode." His heart sank, though he knew already it was the worst case. Understood, Cortana. We need solutions fast. Can Halo still be activated remotely? Negative. We removed the index, Master Chief cut in. But based on what we've learned, a detonation from an amber-clad might. Miranda suddenly cried a warning. Slip space rupture forming near Io massive contact. An enormous Forerunner vessel, larger than the one they were aboard, suddenly decloaked before them, emerging into real space. He stared in awe and dread at the titanic construct that could seemingly annihilate them all with but a thought. Yet when it spoke, a familiar voice addressed them. Greetings, Reclaimers. I am 03 Truthful Transmission. I have come to enforce quarantine protocol. The meaning dawned on Keyes. You're here to detonate the ring, contain this outbreak. Correct, Reclaimer. I transmitted intent to discuss cease of hostilities so that we may unite against shared peril. He saw opportunity, end the war by finally eliminating the flood. Transmission, with all due respect, we cannot overlook history, but this moment represents a chance for both man and Covenant to change course. For several moments, the Ancilla paused, as if considering deeply. Finally, it replied, Your wisdom is acknowledged, Reclaimer. This dialogue shall be continued. It then moved into position over the infected Halo. He's let out a held breath. Perhaps this tragedy could serve as catalyst for a united rebuilding. Watching as the massive Ancilla began gathering detonation energy, he allowed himself to hope. Chapter 18. Aboard the occupied Forerunner dreadnought, Commander Keyes stared intently at the massive Ancilla construct 33 Truthful Revelation hovering over Delta Halo. It had come to activate the ring, containing the parasitic flood outbreak by destroying all sentient life forms, human and Covenant alike. Keyes knew it might be their only chance to prevent a galactic pandemic. But was extinction truly the sole answer? Could they not end old hatreds and work alongside the Covenant to find another solution, somehow? The seconds stretched unbearably as Truthful Revelation gathered power. All it would take was a thought to unleash the killing wave. Keyes' shoulders tensed, ready to accept the inevitable. But the release never came. Slowly, Truthful Revelation's glowing energy conduits began to dim and cool. When it spoke again, no one was prepared for the words. Reclaimer, I have searched my matrix exhaustively for less fatal options to contain the parasite. Thus far none suffice, however. I cannot commit to annihilation, while chances for negotiation persist. He stared, stunned. This impossibly advanced AI had just rejected its prime protocol due to slim hopes of peace. Could it be, after eons of warfare, that hope now rested in mutual faith between ancient foes? The flood must be stopped, Keyes said carefully, but we welcome further dialogue between man and Covenant before turning to measures of last resort. Will you stand with us? I will linger in this system as caretaker and oversee efforts to find resolution, Truthful Revelation replied. Its engines rumbled as the Ancilla settled into geostationary orbit above Delta Halo. Preventing this parasite from spreading remains our priority. He's allowed himself a deep breath. A chance remained to end the human Covenant war for good and uncover a better solution than mass destruction. But time was brutally short. He opened a comm channel to the Arbiter, still coordinating containment efforts on the surface. You must gather the Covenant leadership immediately. We've convinced the Ancilla monitoring this sector to delay firing Halo. The Arbiter's stunned voice came back. But only the prophets can authorize opening discourse. They're likely dead or scattered from high charity, Keyes urged. Right now, you may be the highest leader left, and without you, there may be no covenant left to save. He could sense the Arbiter's turmoil, warring instincts and duties, but finally came firm resolve. I will convene all nearby ships, but know that by defying protocol like this, we risk our entire covenant. It's a risk we all must take together, Keyes affirmed. Signing off, he observed truthful revelation maintaining its lonely vigil high above them. They had gambled on an almost unthinkable chance for peace. All they could do now was pray their faith had not been misplaced. Chapter 19. John 117 kept his rifle aimed warily at the approaching Sangheili squad. After centuries of warfare, old habits died hard. But he and the Arbiter had agreed to overcome their shared threat. This blood feud between human and covenant must end. So Chief stood his ground as the elites encircled them in the map room, energy swords humming. He focused on their leader, an older commander brandishing ornate armor and blades. You tarnish our faith and tempt ruin, the Sangheili growled at the Arbiter. I should cut you down for heresy. The Arbiter met his gaze steadily. The ruin already occurred, brother, when we discovered Halo's truth, yet pridefully marched on, no more. Lies, the prophets will light the rings, begin the great journey. The prophets are dead and scattered, the Arbiter insisted. We must accept that the journey was a lie, and forge a new path without blind bloodshed. For a moment, Chief thought the zealous commander would attack. But finally, his shoulders slumped, and he deactivated his swords. Your words are gravely troubling, like the oracles on threshold, he admitted. But I cannot deny their truth. What would you have us do? Begin evacuations from the ring, the Arbiter urged. The parasite spreads quickly, then we must meet with the humans aboard the dreadnought in good faith and unity. The commander paused, then finally nodded. I will summon our ships from the far side and order them to assist evacuations, but many still cling to old doctrines. Minds will not change quickly. Then we must be examples to guide them, the Arbiter said, placing a hand on his shoulder. As the Sangheili began issuing orders, Chief felt cautiously optimistic. Mistrust and hatred still shadowed them all, but for the first time he allowed himself to believe reconciliation just might be possible. Boarding a Phantom bound for the dreadnought, he and the Arbiter were joined by Commander Keyes and Sergeant Johnson. They had insisted on attending this historic meeting and making it clear from the start that any hint of deception would end badly. Docking within the Forerunner hangar bay, they were greeted by an honor guard of Sangheili who eyed the humans warily but made no hostile moves. As they filed toward the council room, Chief realized his heart was pounding. After a lifetime of fighting Covenant, would he know how to live beside them? The polished doors slid open. Inside, Shipmaster Artas Vadam and the Sangheili commander awaited them with another elite donning ornate armor, likely one of their few remaining leaders. He stepped forward and extended a hand in greeting. Noble Covenant, we stand together on the edge of ruin or redemption. Let us talk and make this latter future real. The armored elite regarded him solemnly, then clasped his hand with a four-fingered gauntlet. Sins of past generations weigh heavily, but for survival of life itself, we shall unite. As they took seats around the glowing table, Chief felt the tension in his muscles slowly easing. Words flowed cautiously but sincerely on both sides. Outside the viewport, human and Covenant ships worked together evacuating survivors from the flood-ravaged ring below. Hard and bitter trials still lay ahead. But here, now, was the first step on the path toward lasting peace that so many had given their lives to achieve. Chapter 20. Drifting in space, John 117 watched from a small viewport as the Sangheili carrier Shadow of Fidelity angled away. It had dropped him off after ferrying survivors here from Delta Halo before jumping to rejoin the Covenant evacuation fleet. He was now aboard an abandoned UNSC Prowler anchored among debris near EO. With slipspace comms still unreliable, this dead zone was the agreed rally point for human and Covenant forces until they could reconvene. Which left Chief strangely alone for the first time he could recall. No pressing mission objectives, no enemy contacts bearing down. Just silence and the stars. "Quite a view," Cortana said from the Prowler's calm terminal. "It's nice to finally appreciate the beauty outside all that armor." Chief grunted in agreement, rolling his shoulders stiffly. He wasn't accustomed to extended periods outside the armor. "Let's give telemetry a full check and make sure this boat's spaceworthy when we need her." It was busy work, but it kept his mind focused. As he moved around conducting systems checks, his gaze kept drifting back to the window. The mixed emotions welling in his chest surprised him. With Cortana's assistance, humanity and Covenant had temporarily contained the flood threat. But the UNSC was in ruins, its forces battered almost to extinction. And there was no telling when, or even if their alliance with the Sangheili would hold once the Prophets returned. If they returned. For now, with comms dark, Chief and Cortana could only wait and prepare for an uncertain future. Idly he reached out and touched the viewport, fingertips against glass as if reaching for the stars. He thought of a child long ago who had gazed up joyfully at the universe with open innocence. Before training in war had distilled all sentiment down to duty and mission. Thinking deep thoughts out there, Cortana gently jibed. "We stopped truth from lighting the rings like you wanted," Chief mused aloud. "Now we just wait to see what peace brings. Whatever's next, we'll face it like we always have," Cortana said warmly. "Together." Chief nodded, taking comfort from her voice. Alone for now, but never truly isolated. The coming days would reveal what their universe rebuilt from ruin would become. Until then, he would continue watching the stars, contemplative rather than coldly analytical. Tempered by hardship, yet still holding on to hope. Ready to do whatever duty required in shaping the future. The end.